yeah, it started to definitely turn into sexual abuse. In my
How old were you at this time?
I think he started like grooming, and I say grooming. I'll define grooming as if somebody doesn't know what grooming is, when they win your trust and manipulate you. And I think he started doing that for like a year and a half. Sexual abuse probably started like at 7. Me and my sister was like a year and a half older than me. I think I was like really probably like one of the lowest times I've ever felt, like was that moment. And I was
How
like,
old were you at that point?
I think I was like 8 or 9.
So already at 8 years
Man,
old.
that's crazy.
Yeah. I felt so low. Like if you could break a kid's spirit, he broke me. Like I think at that moment I wasn't even crying anymore. I already cried. He already embarrassed me. He did what he wanted, and he like, to me, he won at that moment. And I remember Monique she felt so bad, and she was just rubbing my arm like, I'm sorry, it's okay, Des, mom's almost here. And I think I remember just like, all right. She knew, like, man, like, she's done. She can't come here no more. And that became real for me. Like, whoa, like that was God speaking to me. And then I realized I can't forgive them. I can't. But like through Jesus, I can. So then I started to learn, like, the only forgiveness you can find is through God. So then that's when it became real, is when I was able to forgive people. Once I was able to forgive people, realize God forgave me, I have to forgive others. Then, like, I started getting healing, because I just didn't get saved and was all like in it. Like, I didn't want to just, I want to do this, I want to do that. I didn't want to do anything. I just was learning.
Yeah. Welcome back to another Life Speaks episode. I'm your host, Case, and I want to shout out our sponsors before I pass it on to the other host. The Choosing Hope Foundation, out here doing big things. They're wrapped around prison ministries and just helping people out in ways that they need help. Check it out, the choosinghopefoundation.org. You'll see, you can donate. You can just see what God does in people's lives. Check it out. And the Life Speaks podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for tuning in with us. Just check us out on the you can see our episodes. You can donate. You can just the same thing. You can see what God's done in people's lives, and man, it's just what it's all wrapped around. It's just wrapped around God, and man, it's just powerful. And the pottershouse.gra.com. Check out our website, just got posted up, and man, you can see the powerful things that God is doing on our website. So check us out. So I'm gonna turn it over to Jesse.
I'm Jesse, the other host. Just real quick, want to say about the Life Speak podcast. Make sure someone is going through something. You got family members. Their situation. They're struggling. You've seen some videos. You see something that might speak to them. I just want to say, we've seen great feedback from these podcasts. We've seen them touch people in ways we never could have imagined, and God's really been moving through them. So you never know. Just send them that link. Send them that little link, and God might get a hold of them. So I just wanted to say that. But this evening, we got a very special guest. We got Pastor TJ's other half. So y'all may have seen Pastor TJ's podcast.
Yeah.
And so now we have a very special guest. His wife, Miss Desiree, came and joined us. And so we're going to have the privilege to hear her story and, see how God has moved through her life. Amen. So, Ms. Des, welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I guess just to start things off, can you take us back? Where are you from?
So I grew up here my whole life, lived in San Antonio my whole life. I had both parents in the home. I am the youngest. There's 3 of us, so I have 2 older sisters. I'm the youngest, and I remember growing up, we lived northwest side, but it was more west, like Woodlawn area. And so we lived in a rough neighborhood. My dad had a good job. He's actually still at the same job. Like right now, he's going to retire soon. He's been truck driving his whole life. And I remember growing up and seeing both my parents there very involved with me and my sisters. My mom and dad got together when they were young, so they were like, I guess, high school sweethearts. She got pregnant and they got married. And so she lost her first, which was my older brother. The day of delivery, he passed away. So it was kind of like them young kids having kids, you know?
Oh man.
And so we grew up seeing my dad, you know, provide. I think they paid off their first house like before I was 10. So there was like good stability. We weren't moving around a lot. We went to the same school. Like I've only been to 2 elementaries. So it was like one elementary. And then when I moved, you know, in 4th grade, but I saw them provide for us. I saw them, you know, we had a good home. We had good clothes, food all the time. They were very involved. They would take us out. I remember every Friday, like we would go out to eat when my dad would get paid. And we just had like a good life. But I do know the biggest thing that sticks out to me is that like how my husband said there was something in him that wanted to serve God or like know about God. We didn't go to church. And so I remember like starting pre-K first, you know, kinder, 1st grade. A lot of the kids on that side of town were like, they would go to Catholic school or like Catholic after school program or something. It's called like CCD or something like that. I'm not really too familiar on Catholic, but I remember always wanting, you know, like, what is that? Like you go to church or, you know, cause my family didn't go to church. My mom and dad, we didn't do that. And, my mom's side of the family was very like, rowdy. Like my mom, they're from California. So it was like really, really
Wow.
drugs, alcohol, like gangster, you know, that type of vibe. And then my dad's side of the family, you know, his dad left him when he was like 8. So it was like just his mom, who was a Christian. And then she remarried my grandfather. And then my dad had an older brother and an older sister. So that was it. He really didn't know like the history of his family because his dad, you know, walked out on them. So I always wanted to go to church. I remember that's something that really, really stuck out to me was like, Mom, why don't we go to church? I would always ask her. Now I know why we didn't go to church. I didn't know then, but I remember my mom telling me that she had a really, really bad experience at a church. It was like a small church, and I guess like an evangelist came, and it was one of those church where the girls wear like skirts, and I guess my mom wore pants that day, so she got a word that because she didn't wear a skirt, she was gonna go to hell. So that like stayed in her head.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so she was like always like, I'm not doing church. I'm not gonna go.
That's pretty
But
bad.
I always wanted to go to church. Like I would always tell my mom, let's go. Like, you know, our families weren't really into going to church. I never saw that. I would just see it at school or I would hear about it. My mom would tell me, I think I remember my mom talking about heaven to me one time. So she knew of God. And I was so fascinated with like the thought of God, like who's that? And so I would have questions about God, like where is he, or like what is he? And we would do the whole Christmas thing, like Santa. Like my mom and dad would like set up a bunch of toys. Like that's something I remember. Is like my mom and dad would always like bless us with a bunch of toys and stuff. And but
That's
God,
pretty cool.
yeah, but Santa had nothing on God. Like I wanted to know who God was. Like forget Santa. Like I wanted to know who God was. And so I remember like being young and my parents taking us to Disneyland. Like they were there, you know, like I love my parents. They were always there for us. But I think on my mom's side of the family, I had my great grandma who was my abuelita. She was my everything. She played a huge role in my salvation. And she played a huge role. Even to this day, I can think about her. And she had a huge impact on my life. She would tell me about God. And then on my dad's side of the family, his brother got saved, and he would tell us about God. So to me as a kid, like everybody was like talking about God and all this stuff, but we just never really went to church or whatever. So I would tell my mom, like, I remember my uncle coming over and witnessing, I guess, to my mom and dad. And they just didn't want to go. They were really, really closed off to it. My mom was hurt. I guess my dad was doing his own thing. I remember my dad's mom would witness to him, tell him to, you know, give his life to God. And he, I guess, maybe wouldn't, or maybe he did. I just never really saw that, you know, us go to church, like have that structure. So like we did have materialistic things. My parents did provide for us. But as far as like spiritually, it just wasn't there. So me, I was like, I guess stubborn. I would keep asking, like, I want to go to church. And I remember being in school, and I think I was like a kindergarten, and no, probably like first grade. My friends were going to that Catholic CCD after school, and I begged my mom if I can go. And I think the only reason why they let me go is because my dad was friends with her parents. They worked together. So I went, and I didn't learn anything about God. It was so boring. I was like, I'm not going back. And so I think I was like 5 or 6. I remember my uncle coming over. I remember him telling my mom and dad about church, and I asked if I can go with him. And I remember him saying, like, yeah, he was telling my parents, let her come to church. He wants to come to church. And my mom was like, I don't know. And so my middle sister is a year and a half, we're a year and a half difference. I asked her, would you go to church with me? And I was like 6. And she said, yeah. So we went to church. I remember he picked us up on a Sunday morning. I remember getting a dress. I remember it was like a big day for me. I wanted to always do that. And I remember going to church with him, and I remember loving it. Like, I don't remember what the pastor was saying. I don't remember anything he was saying, but I just remember, like, I liked the feeling and being able to say, like, man, I went to church.
That's awesome.
And so
what kind of church was it?
It was a Christian church. I think it had to have been a Christian church. And everybody was super friendly. And I remember coming home, and my mom and dad were asking about it, and I was like, I love it. I want to go back. And they allowed me and my sister to go back to church, and we would, I don't really think we were hearing the preaching. We just liked the atmosphere.
Oh, okay.
Pretty sure it was definitely God tugging on my heart as a young child. And so I remember there was different parts of my life. I guess like my abuelita, my great grandmother, she would tell me about God, and then I was just real into it. I was like 6 years old, and I was like, man, like I want to keep going. And I remember my uncle taking us a couple of Sundays. He would have to come pick us up in the morning, but then I remember him asking me like, well, y'all should just spend the night on Saturday, because it's easier instead of driving all the way to your house Sunday. Why don't you ask your mom? So we would ask my mom, like, please let us stay the night. And so we would stay the night like on a Saturday night and like buy pizza, and like it was fun. And then we would like go to church, and then after church he would take us to eat, and then he was like planting, I guess, a seed at that time.
That's good.
Yeah, for me and my sister. And so we did that for a little bit, and then it turned into like now weekends, like Friday and then Saturday and then Sunday. So we were like now spending weekends with him to go to church. And I remember one time being there in church with him, and I remember always seeing his pastor preach, and I knew it was his pastor because he would say pastor. And then I remember my uncle putting his Bible down, and my uncle came out of a divorce. He didn't see his 2 kids. So like, I guess he was getting really attached to me and my sister, and we were getting really attached to him. And I remember seeing him put his Bible down and like go up there and preach. I was like, what? Like, it tripped me and my sister out. We were like, I don't know. We weren't used to seeing that. So he came and sat down, and we were happy. We were like, man, you preach, like you
did like a whole sermon and everything. He didn't tell y'all nothing. He just went up there and preached the sermon.
I guess he had known he was gonna like preach. We didn't know. We were like 7 years old.
That's pretty cool.
And then, so I saw him do that. I remember him asking him like, "You're a pastor?" And I remember him saying, "Yeah, I'm a man of God," or something like that. I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And but I guess there's a lot of stuff my uncle didn't deal with, maybe personally. I don't know if he didn't have accountability, but he would take us to do things like have fun. On a Friday night we would go to the movies. Maybe Saturday it was buy pizza, and then it was Sunday go to church, and then take us home. So we were kind of doing that for a couple of months, maybe a year. We were like doing that, going to church with him. He won us, like, but I think he started to like. He actually bought me my first Bible. I remember it was like a New Testament Bible, and I remember, you know, like him telling me it's super important to read this. And I remember listening to Christian rap with him, Kirk Franklin. I don't know if you ever heard about him, but he did a Christian rap song that was like a big memory of that. And I remember that, you know, it started off like winning me with trust, but then it started getting kind of inappropriate with him. It was like, you know, here's a Bible, or here's this, or here's a toy, or here maybe a kiss on the cheek. Like it, and then it started maybe like touch or feel, or, you know, it just started getting really weird. And it definitely turned into something that I really wish didn't happen, but it happened. And yeah, it started to definitely turn into sexual abuse. In my
How old were you at this time?
I think he started like grooming, and I say grooming. I'll define grooming as, if somebody doesn't know what grooming is, when they win your trust and manipulate you. And I think he started doing that for like a year and a half. Sexual abuse probably started like at 7. Me and my sister was like a year and a half older than me. And it started like, what? Like, what was that? Like, what? Did he just do that? But we kind of didn't know what was wrong with it, because like you're kind of like, you just don't understand.
Yeah.
Kind of kid. Because you trust him, and then you just, you know. And so I think he used the word of God. I think he used God to his full advantage.
Oh man.
I think he was struggling a lot and never got really any help with it. And I think me and my sister were the closest to him. And yeah, we kind of got the brunt of it, of, I guess, all his struggle. So.
But did you like look up to him and stuff?
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh,
like he was like,
was that devastating?
oh yes. Even now talking about it's like really devastating. But I think like our whole family kind of looked at him, because my mom's family was really rough. And so then my dad's family, like we didn't, you know, I think he was like, I guess everyone thought like he brought the hope to the family. So it was really devastating. It was really confusing. It was really scary for us, because we were so like little, and we were confused. We were like, me and my sister were so like confused. But as years went on, or as this went on, you just don't really want to go anymore. You don't really want to go to with him, you know, to church or anything. But at this point, it's not like we're asking to go. It's sometimes we were like, hey, you're going to go over there for the week. We got to do something, because they trusted him. So we're like, okay. So we kind of set ourselves up, like me and my sister, like, well, we know if we go, this is going to happen, because it was happening now. Like,
did you ever let it known that you don't want to
go? No, I don't think so. I don't think like I was like, I don't want to go over there, because I did want to go to church. Like I did. I just didn't want that like to happen. So we would go, but me and my sister would like make a pact. We're like, if we go over there, we're like, we'll stick together.
That's cool.
So we would have each other's back. But as we got older, I guess it just kind of got a little worse, and it got more.
Oh man.
It got more. Just got more, a little more.
Got more intense.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about that?
I felt like
what kind of feelings was you going through?
7. I don't know. I felt kind of. I know I felt sad. I felt confused. My sister is actually the one. She was like a year and a half older than me. She was like, "This is wrong, right?" She would ask me, and I'm like, "No." I'm like, because he says he's a man of God. So it was like I was defending him, because I loved him. You know, he passed away already, but you trust him, you know. So I was like, no, he's a man of God. So she was kind of like, okay. But then there was just a point when stuff that was happening was just, I mean, not supposed to happen. Stuff you're not supposed to see as a kid, do as a kid. And so then I knew, like, nah, that's wrong. Like, that's really wrong. Like, that's weird. That's that's not right. Like,
Yeah.
we never got shown that. That couldn't be. Like, I don't know. It's just really hard to take in as a kid.
Did you ever say anything?
No, I think we wanted to say something, me and my sister. And I think we had a lot of opportunities to say stuff. We just didn't because we were scared. And we didn't want to probably hurt my mom and dad because they looked up to him. We didn't want to hurt him because, what if we were kind of thinking, what if he's not doing it wrong? Like, I don't know. We're just so young.
Yeah.
We're kind of like, well, what if?
Confusion.
Yeah, it was super confusing. So we're like, well, what if? I don't know. We never said. Now they know. I mean, it came out. But no, we didn't say anything. And so that happened for quite a bit, that sexual abuse. And it eventually stopped. It eventually stopped probably when I was like 12 or 13. I think I finally told him enough is enough. But yeah, it was, I think around 7 or 8 years old, we had kind of stopped asking to go there. Well, my mom and dad had, they had this couple that they were best friends with. And so we would kind of go there on the weekends. And this couple had like a big old house and like nice cars. And like they had a son who was my older sister's age. And then they had a daughter who was in between me and my middle sister. So like we just clicked, like our family and that family. And I guess church just kind of got out of the picture maybe. And we started like hanging out with this family. And we were there all the time. My mom and dad would have like fun with them. I'm pretty sure drinking was involved. I don't remember seeing them get like, drunk, like hammered or anything. I just remember they were like laughing a lot in the living room, and we'd be upstairs. We'd be upstairs playing with the little girl. And I remember she had like 2 bedrooms. One bedroom was like princess canopy bed, like marble dressers, and then the next room was like toys. Like I had fun there. And so we would stay there super late. And I remember coming home like 1 or 2 in the morning. My mom would be like carrying us in. We'd be there all the time. And then next weekend would come. We'd be like, are we going to go back? We're going to go back. Yeah, we're going to go back. We're going to go hang out with them, barbecue. And I remember one night, I think it was like so late. And I guess they just told my dad and my mom, just leave them here. Leave the girls here. Let them sleep. So we woke up, we're like, man, like our parents left us here. Like that was fun. And then I remember one weekend, I guess something happened in my family. I don't remember, but it was like an emergency. And they needed that couple to pick us up from school. And they told my mom and dad that my mom and dad told them that if they could watch us for like maybe 3 or 4 days, I can't remember. And I remember them picking us up. I remember going to their house. I remember not having my mom and dad there, so the vibe was just very different. I remember walking into this big old house, and like it just wasn't fun. Like you felt like the thickness there. Like they go through issues. Like you just don't. Whatever you see on the outside is not always what happens on the inside. And so I remember the mom was mad, that the husband was mad. I just never seen them like that. So I was just like, what? So I was like, oh, let's go play. I remember playing upstairs. I remember doing all that. I remember the dad yelling really loud at the kids. It was just different. I was like, what? Like, I'm not used to seeing, them act like that. And I remember him yelling at me for something with the door. I can't remember if I slammed it or I was running in and out. And I remember like, don't slam that door, cussing at me. And I was just like, whoa, like, because we were always guests in their home. So now it's just like, he's yelling at me and I'm like, oh, okay, sorry. And making, yes, sir. And I had to call him, yes, sir. And I remember then my mom and dad picked us up a couple, like 2 or 3 days later. And I remember going back over there a lot, a lot on the weekends. I'm not sure if it was every week and every other week, but it was a lot. As a kid, I was over there a lot. And I don't know if my parents started going out. I don't know what they really did, but it was like, you're going to go to this person's house for the weekend. I was like, okay, we're going to go back over there, pack your bags, go over there. But when they would send me over there, I just did not like going over there anymore. And he would yell. The wife was just always mad. And I remember, I guess he had lost his job. So we were like stuck with him because his wife was working. And I remember him yelling. I don't know what he was yelling at. He was yelling at me. Maybe I was like laughing too much at the dinner table or eating, and he had told me to settle down. And I don't know, maybe I was being too much. I don't remember ever acting up. Like, I wasn't a bad kid. Like, I was just a kid. But I remember him yelling, stop laughing. And maybe I couldn't stop laughing. I don't remember. And I remember him telling me to go upstairs, and I remember him whooping my butt.
Oh, wow.
For laughing, yeah.
Dang, that ain't even your dad.
Huh?
Yeah, it's not even your dad.
Yeah, no.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I know, like, if my dad were to I know, like, if my dad were to see this right now, he would go crazy.
Yeah.
So it's just like, he whooped me, but in my head, I was just like, oh, wow, like, that scared me so bad.
Yeah.
I was so afraid of him. And so then it was like, get whooped, and then your parents come pick you up.
Oh,
and it was
man.
like, okay, so I wouldn't even think about telling on him. He scared me. And so then, we lived life, and then we were just, for this period of my life, we were just with this family, like, all the time. And I remember going back over there again, and I remember him, anything I did would set him off. And so my middle sister, the one that would go through the sexual abuse with me, she was always with me. Like, we always had each other's back. But at this house, she didn't go through that there. Thank God she didn't go through that there. But she saw me go through that. So that was, like, really hard for her, because I think she felt really bad for me because I was, like, the young one. And so it's just really hard to, like, take in, to accept certain things, understand why are you doing that, and then I remember one time we were there, and I think we were all gonna go swimming the pool. You could see the pool from their front yard, so he would let us, like, walk to the pool. And we got all ready. He was in a bad mood, but he was gonna let us go swimming that day. And I remember getting my bathing suit on. I remember getting my floaty, and I remember going to the door, but he stopped me and he said, everyone can go but you. They called me Ray. Growing up, they always called me Ray. Everyone can go but Ray. And so, my middle sister right away was like, why can't she go? And he got real after her. Don't ask questions. She's just too little. And I was like, man, like, I don't want to stay here with him. Like, what is he going to do to me? And I remember crying because I was like, I wanted to go swimming with all the other kids. And I remember he was like, if you even cry, like, you're going to get it.
Oh,
and I
man.
cried. I was like, oh, my gosh. I was scared. And I cried, and he told me to get upstairs, and he whooped my butt.
Oh, man, that's
Whooped
crazy.
me. And I had to stay in the room, in a locked room. And then I remember they all went swimming, and then they came back, and my sister right away, I could see her. She's looking for me. And she came and she sat by me, but he wouldn't let her. Like, he wouldn't let no one near me. I don't know what it was about me, but he, like, preyed on me. It would even be like we would be eating, and I couldn't have ice cream. Or for what? You just can't. And it was just really twisted. It was really weird, and I just I didn't tell my parents. I don't know, like, maybe I was just too scared to tell them anything. And I remember.
Was you scared he was going to get you or something? Like, if I tell on him, then I got to face this?
Probably, maybe. I don't really remember what I felt. I just remember feeling like I'm not telling. Like, I'm not telling. Like, I'm really scared to say anything. I remember being there one time, and when I was there, time went by really slow. Like, I couldn't wait for my parents to pick me up. But when I was there, it was like, I just dreaded being there. I just wanted my mom. I remember one time he allowed us to play outside, and we played outside, and I guess all the kids were on the block playing, and he was watching us. but I couldn't go in the street. So all the other kids could be in the street, but I had to stay in the driveway. Again, he said I was small. So I was like, okay, at least I get to be out here with my sisters. And so I was playing with the scooter. I guess I dropped the scooter or something that made him mad. He would watch me. Like, I would look at him and he was with anger. He was watching me. He was waiting for something. Crazy. Yeah, I was really twisted. And I remember dropping the scooter maybe to go run to a bike or something. I can't really remember. And he yelled, "Ray," like loud. And I remember getting so scared. I defecated on myself.
Oh, man.
And like when they say, oh, they scared the crap out of you. No, he scared the crap out of me.
Oh, man.
That I did that. So I was like, crap, like, man, I had a problem wetting the bed when I was young. So embarrassing. But
I think we all did.
but now I think like, man, did I wet the bed? Because I was always so with different things that happened to me. Like, was I just afraid all the time? I don't know. So when I would wet the bed at his house, I would get whooped.
Oh, man.
I would get in trouble. But it's so crazy when I would when I would wet the bed at my house, my mom and dad they would get after me sometimes. Like, you need to pee before you go to bed. But it never really made me feel low. Yeah. And so it was like, man, he would get really mad and tell me how disgusting that was. And, messing up his stuff and just made me feel so bad. And I remember when I did that, when he yelled at me, and this time I'm doing number 2 in my pants, I'm like, oh man, he's gonna whoop me. And I remember him calling me to come to him. And I guess I'm walking slow. And he's like, do you know how much that cost? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. And he said, look at your, so I was thinking I was going to get away with it. I was like, oh, maybe I could just walk past him and like go clean myself, change or something. And then he said, look at you, your shoelace is untied. Come here. I was like, crap. So I remember like walking slow. Well, I faced him and he flipped me over and sat me on his lap.
Oh, man.
So I was like, oh no, he can. And he felt it.
He knows what's up.
He knew man. Like she had an accident.
Yeah.
And this time it's not like it's number 2. Like she's going to get it. So he said, did you, he cussed at me. I was like, I just remember looking straight at the street. Like, I wouldn't even answer him. He's like, answer me. And I could not answer him. And he told me to get inside and go upstairs. And I started crying because usually my sister knows when I'm getting whooped or she's always there, and so this time nobody was in the house. I was like, I'm not going in there. And I fought it. I fought it so bad, and that made him mad. And so I remember him like getting me inside and like getting me to the stairs, and I'm like stopping him. Like I'm like grabbing the pole and I'm fighting, and he's mad. He's so mad that I'm fighting now. And he picks me up and he takes me all the way upstairs and he sits me on the toilet and he tells me to, use the restroom in front of him. Do that. And I can't. I can't. I already went. And he's yelling at me and he's whooping me on the toilet. And I remember him picking my dirty mess up from my clothes and him shoving it in my face.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah. And I just remember him saying like, honestly, I don't really remember what he was saying. He was just loud, yelling, and I was crying. And then I remember he made me get in the shower and he watched me shower. And then I remember him taking me a shower, like trying to clean me, yelling at me. It was super embarrassing. And I remember him telling me to stay in the restroom and you just really want your mom. And I remember, I don't know how I got in the closet. I'm not sure if he put me in there or if I put myself in there, because I know he told me to stay in the restroom, but I can't see myself going in his closet if he told me not, like if he didn't tell me to. I know I wouldn't. I would listen. Yeah. I was terrified. So I don't know how I got in the closet. Some things are kind of like blurry. And then I remember hearing the alarm to the door that the kids were inside, and I think he let me go sit on a futon bed. And then I sat on a futon bed and I hear my sister looking for me. And then she comes in the room, and I think I'm so defeated. And I think she sits by me and she's like, Des, I'm sorry. Because she knows she wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was like really probably like one of the lowest times I've ever felt, like was that moment. And I was
How
like,
old were you at that point?
I think I was like 8 or 9.
Wow. So already at 8 years
Man,
old. And
that's crazy.
Yeah. I felt so low. Like if you could break a kid's spirit, he broke me. Like I think at that moment I wasn't even crying anymore. I already cried. He already embarrassed me. He did what he wanted, and he like, to me, he won at that moment. And I remember Monique she felt so bad, and she was just rubbing my arm like, I'm sorry, it's okay, Des, mom's almost here. And I think I remember just like, all right. She knew, like, man, like, she's done. She can't come here no more. And I do remember that night. I think it was the last night I was there. He woke me up. I don't know why he woke me up. He woke me up and he was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. And he said, come with me. And I was like, heck no. I was like, no, I'm okay. And I closed my eyes. And he said, no, get up, get up. And he got me up. And I don't know what happened, but his wife ended up seeing him grab me in the middle of the night. She woke up and she grabbed me from him. And she made me lay in her bed, and she held me. I don't know what that was about. Maybe she knew something. I'm not sure. But I didn't want to be in her arms. I wanted to be in my mom's arms. And so I remember then my family announcing that they were going to get a divorce. And we went over there one time, and their whole house was empty. And that was probably the best day of my life, as I didn't have to go back over there no more. Yep.
God moved.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the whole time your parents had no idea
No.
what was going on. There was no.
I think I told my mom one time before they had announced that they were getting divorced that I didn't want to go over there no more. I woke her up in the middle of the night. I was crying. And she was like, why? And I was like, I didn't want to say it. I just don't want to go over there. It's so crazy because, like, the sexual abuse I dealt with my uncle, that was so devastating. But that didn't feel what this felt like. That was, twisted in itself. But this was like, he scared me. He scared me. Like, it was just different. It was rough, and it was mean, and it was scary. It was intimidating. And so I told my mom I didn't want to go over there, and she didn't send me back over there because I told her I didn't want to go, and she didn't. She didn't send me back over there. And even when I would hear they would do fun stuff with my sisters, I was like, I don't care. I'm not going there. And then, yeah, I never went back over there after they got a divorce. Never.
No, that's
So
cool.
I was like 8, 9 years old.
Where did the drug use come in?
We moved to Kirby not long after that. My dad wanted to get us out of that neighborhood. So we moved over here when I was like in 4th grade. I think I was like 10 years old. And I think my dad thought like it was a better neighborhood. My parents still live there. They live right across the street from the police station in Kirby. And I think he started letting me like go to my friend's house. And yeah, I started using drugs with my friends where I was at their house. Maybe he thought like, I don't know, maybe he just thought the environment was different, bringing us out, from that side of town to Kirby or whatever. And I tried marijuana at 11 years old. And yeah, so I would try to like hang out with my friends as much as I could. I thought it was so fun. I found a lot of comfort in my friends. And at home, my mom and dad were like falling apart, I guess you could say. They had actually gotten a divorce when my older sister was 2 and never remarried. So the whole time they were living together, I never knew they were really divorced. And so, I started, getting older, started doing, I think I tried my first Xanax pill when I was like 12 and started drinking at 12 years old, just started going out. I became a really good liar. I lied about it all. And I started hanging out, just with the wrong crowd, getting in trouble in school. I started becoming really, really angry, I guess, all the stuff I had been through. I never really got angry at God. I was just angry with my parents for sure. Like, how come they didn't see certain things? And I'm holding it all in. They don't know. Angry with, the 2 men. And then I was angry with myself. And so I was spiraling out of control as I was getting in trouble in school a lot.
Were you developing like resentments and stuff?
Yeah, for sure. I had a lot of I felt rejected,
Oh,
rejection bad. And yeah, just started using drugs. My parents are falling apart. There's no God, there's no structure, there's no church. So I was just super angry.
And that first chapter was closed. I know you said you stopped going over to their friend's house after they got divorced.
Mm.
You said you had slowly stopped spending the night with your uncle. So was that completely done as well, or did that?
No, he would come over in Kirby. I was 11.
So you would still continue to see him after this drug use?
He had ended up getting married in the church. I guess he had courted or whatever he did. Got married. Him and his wife, I think, were youth pastors and at their church, but he would still come over and try to violate me, my sister. Still.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I think it was till 12, 13 that I was I think I told him, because I was getting really bold at that age.
Yeah.
I was getting really angry. Now I have a voice. So I was just hey, I think I told him one time we were outside, hey, you see that police station right there? If you touch me again, I'm going to go over there. And I remember him never coming back.
Darn.
Yeah.
Scared him.
Yeah, I scared him.
That's good, though.
Yeah, he got scared. And he never, ever, I didn't see him for years after that. And, yeah, I didn't see that. I think that chapter, that piece closed, but inside I was still carrying it, for sure.
What were you masking? What were you masking with the drug use and stuff?
That probably.
Masking all that resentments.
I know the Xanax. I started using Xanax at 12, and I used them for the next 6-7 years of my life.
Wow, that is young.
Yeah, and I got every year was more and more and more pills and more pills and more pills, and I liked it because I liked it at the time because it didn't make me feel. It made me feel numb. I didn't have to deal with anything. That's what I always said. So.
And you were aware of that? You knew at that point that the drugs were an escape, or were you doing drugs and
I think at 11 or 12 I was just trying to try it. It was fun and then laughing a lot. And then 13, 14, 15, I'm just becoming more angry, and I'm getting older and older. I'm starting to do stuff I'm not supposed to do. Drinking, partying. My mom and them they're falling, apart. So they're not really keeping up with me and my sisters. And
is all that all the drug use and the alcohol and stuff, is that fuel to the fire of everything you're going through and stuff?
Yeah.
It's just making everything worse.
Oh, heck yeah. It's making everything worse. I didn't see it at the time as it was making it worse. I thought it was helping me, but it was making everything worse and worse.
Man.
And my mom got to the point where she's like, why are you so angry? Why are you're just always wanting to fight. You're always getting kicked out for school for fighting, or you're always, wanting to fight me. I'd always yell at my mom. I've never hit my mom. I've never done that, but I would like to intimidate her. And I feel so bad about that now. I love my mom. Me and my mom are so close. But I would do that. I would try to, no one's going to mess with me. Or no one's going to
Was you beating up girls at school?
I was, getting in fights, getting beat up.
Hey, it happens. Yeah. You fight a lot, you're going to get beat up.
Yeah.
So
I remember my first party, I got jumped by 10 girls. Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, my mom was like, you're never going to a party again.
Just you?
Me and my best friend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm never going to a party again.
Oh, man.
I was I learned my lesson. And so that's why you shouldn't let your kids go to parties. And so
they're going to fight.
Yeah. My mom was like, what do you do at this party? I was like, it's going to be fun. And, there's no drinking, no drugs. But then I got in a fight and we got our butt whooped. So it was my mom was like, no more. So I was like, okay. So I would just chill with my friends. I had a group of friends that we would always hang out. They were my best friends from 4th grade all the way to high school.
Yeah.
And so that we did a lot of things together. We tried weed together, drinking and the pills. We did all that together. And so I remember, I think I was 16 years old, and we got a gallon of vodka. And we finished that whole gallon of vodka. I think it was me and my sister and 3 best friends of ours, and we drank the whole thing. And my mom I don't know who called my parents, because I guess I got out of hand and I got violent, and I don't remember. I guess I blacked out, and they had to call my parents to come get me, and they came and got me. And my mom was so terrified because I was already in trouble in school for fighting, for, truancy, running away. And so I had a probation officer at that time. And I remember they were like, one more and you're done. You're going to go to juvenile.
Oh, wow.
You're in trouble. You don't listen. And
What was you on probation for?
I got caught possession with drugs. Okay. And so I was getting caught with, I got caught with cocaine and weed.
Yeah. Doing big things.
At high school. Yeah.
And school?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
so that was
even more.
Yeah. I was just not hanging around with the right crowd at all. And I did not care. I was testing the waters. Like, I did not care. Man. Like, to me, I was like, what is my mom and dad going to do to me? Like, I was already, like, so angry with them. Just probably hurt inside.
So you were mixing all these drugs together and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that is just...
Yeah.
And that is crazy.
Yes. And so when I got alcohol poisoning, it was, like, on a weekend or something. And my mom stayed up all night, taking care of me. She said, I mean... I don't remember, but she said I was like, sweating the vodka. I was like, had fever and stuff. And she was so afraid to take me to the hospital because she knew, like, man, if I take her to the hospital, they're going to take her from me. Now I think about it, like, they should have probably took me. I made her life hell. And then I remember coming out of that feeling so bad. I felt so bad for my parents that I did that. I embarrassed them.
How long was you sick for when you had alcohol poisoning?
I just remember waking up the next day. I think I slept most of the next day. Mm-hmm. And then I woke up and I didn't remember what happened, but I remember the house smelled like poison. And I was like, what happened? Like, I remember stumbling down the hall and everybody was asleep, I guess, because they were taking care of me for the past day and a half. And I remember making my way to the phone and I called my best friend, like, what happened? Or, I remember the last thing was I was with you and she told me, like, you were trying to fight everybody.
Oh, man.
We had to call your parents. So then, I had a lot of explaining to do. Dang. How did you get the alcohol? And what did you, and, I was 16 years old at that point. And still didn't learn my lesson, still drinking, still smoking, still doing Xanax pills. And then I graduated. I was like 18 years old. I graduated and I was partying more at this time. Now my mom and my dad are officially split up. So I think that hurt a lot because, like, all that I had been through and then to see them not work stuff out, I was just a little disappointed. I was sad. My dad kind of fell into a little depression because my mom was gone. My older sister's doing her own thing. My middle sister's doing her own thing. I'm 18 years old. School's over. I don't have no plans for my life. I think I tried to do the community college and I was just more partying. This is just like, for me, I was not into it. I was bored, I was like, man, I want to party. Like, I want to drink or something. And I remember 18 years old, I think I met my husband. Well, he was my boyfriend at the time, but I met TJ. And that was like a disaster.
He was backing you out the driveway.
Yeah, I met him there. And then we started hanging out, started partying. He was older than me, so I was like, kind of like, we were feeding off each other's depression.
Did you know him before that point, or like, had you seen him in passing, or did you know of him, or run into him at any parties?
Yeah, we did. We ran into each other like in the city, like talking and stuff, and then, but no, not like parties or anything. It was just kind of like one day we just started talking, and then it was like, hey, let's get each other's number, and then like, hey, let's hang out, or let's do this, or let's do that, and my dad was so worried about, what he was going through that I think I was like the last one left in the house. So it was like, and my dad helped me get in my own car. I was working. I felt like I was doing okay at that moment. But when I met him, it was like, I was really going down like a bad, road. Like I was hooked. I don't think I realized how much I was hooked on the Xanax. At 18 years old, I think I was taking like 30 pills a day.
God.
Yeah. I was taking them through the night. I mean, I would have to get up and take
Don't you develop like a dependency on those things?
Yeah, they're super addicting.
It's one of those drugs that you can't just stop.
Yeah.
You'll die.
You have to have a you develop
or that's what they say.
No, that's exactly. It's super dangerous. And so one of my best friend's mom was, she got prescribed that for her anxiety or depression. She was addicted to. She wasn't really taking it for that. She was dependent on it. And she would only sell to me because I was her daughter's best friend. So I would get her money. I would find ways to get her whatever she needed, and she would give me whatever I wanted. And so I had it right there all the time.
Oh, man.
And so when I met TJ, I knew he had kids. I knew he was in their life. He would party and stuff, but when he would have his kids, I would like kind of leave. I'd be like, nah, I'm not really trying to be here with kids. You know, like I wanted to like do my own thing. And so I think at that moment when I was 18, I was super just depressed and I was so empty. And I was down to like 100 pounds. I wasn't even eating anymore. I was just
eating Xanax.
Yeah, like just eating them like candy and partying.
Well, all right, I know how like Xanaxes are. I've done them before, but I ain't never really like been in them like that. Was like whenever you were taking them, was like everything a big blur?
No, because at this point I had a high tolerance.
Oh, okay.
So when I first started taking them, I would black out a lot, but I would still be functioning.
Oh,
I just don't really like remember. Like I could go out and like take all my friends out for the night,
Uh-huh.
and then I get home, and then the next day they're like, "Man, you paid for all of our dinner." I'm like, "What?" Like,
y'all need to pay me back.
Yeah, so I'm like, "What? I did it," So it was dangerous. I could have got myself in a lot more trouble with that. Driving home on them, I don't even know how I
woke
made it
up in
home.
jail a few times on those.
Yeah.
Even before getting saved, I realized like I can't touch these.
Yeah.
I was like,
they're-
these are the devil.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go smoke this meth, man, because these Xanax are no
They're
joke.
dangerous. They're
It was that
so
serious.
dangerous.
Yes.
So I'm like petite 18-year-old hooked on them. So it's just like so bad. I think my friends were already very concerned for me. My parents were concerned for me. And then I think when I met TJ, I finally was like, I'm going to get off of them. I'm going to do it. And at this point, I worked at a Mexican restaurant. And the Mexican restaurant on Fridays and Saturdays, they had a bar in there. And so I was bartending without like an alcohol license. Like they were teaching me how to like just do what they do. So they would teach me how to make the drinks, and like that was just partying at work. So while my dad thinks I'm working or I'm trying to be responsible, I'm there drinking on my job. TJ would come to my job and we'd drink together, and then we'd leave my job and he would get me into the bars and everything, and like I would drink, do that pill after pill after pill. So one day I wanted to stop, and I think I made it probably my second day, and I was withdrawing bad, and I was sweating, I had cramps, I had headaches, I was getting sick, and I ended up having a seizure.
Oh, man.
At that Mexican restaurant.
Yeah, that's like a side effect of heavy Xanax use, right?
I had a seizure, and I ended up in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And it was bad. And then I got out of the hospital, and I didn't learn my lesson, and I went right back to it.
Whenever they told you, they did tests on you and stuff, did they tell you, like, hey, you need to leave these pills alone?
They told me, if you don't knock this off, you're going to die. And I remember my parents like really wanting that report. I was 18, so they couldn't tell my parents anything. And my parents were like, what is on the report? What is on the report? And I remember them kicking my parents and my family out and like talking to me, and they kept it real with me that I was lucky to be alive, that I should have been dead.
Did that scare you?
No.
Dang.
No,
I don't think care.
Yeah, I did not care. I was mad. I wasn't mad like, why am I still here? Nothing like that. I was more mad that my parents were so like concerned. I guess I had a lot of like anger towards them.
Oh, okay.
I didn't really even realize it.
Like, ain't none of your business.
Yeah, I was kind of like, why do y'all care? Y'all are over there divorced. Like y'all are over there. And then I still had my childhood stuff I was dealing with.
Yeah.
No closure there. So I was like, what do you care? Like, I was just angry and mean. And on that particular drug, whatever you feel like that plus 1,000. So if you're angry, you're gonna be way angrier.
That's why I listen to it. It's crazy. Yeah, it brings back memories, because I'm like, man, what she's saying, like that was me. I was like, man, that's the same thing, like that same emptiness, that same anger. I'm like, wow, like, yeah, there's other people, and we know there's other people, right? We hear people's testimonies, but to sit here across from you and to hear you say the stories, it's just, like bringing back memories. I'm like, yeah, that's that anger, that was that pain, amplified times 1,000
on that like drug.
And you're on autopilot, so it's not even you. It's like your subconscious. It's all that hurt without you even thinking. And it's like, well, this is what you did. And it's like, well, that's what you feel inside. Like, that's what you're filled with.
And then mix that with liquor. Oh my gosh, that was horrible. It never ended good. And so that's where I ended up getting out of the hospital. And I fell right back to it. I was trying to like not it. So I knew if I were to go right back to taking them the way I was taking them, I would probably die. So I didn't do that. The doctor already warned me about that. So I was just kind of like here and there. I was still with, TJ. He heard, he was there. He found out what happened. He was like, what the heck? Like, that's scary. So we would still party. And I remember, I think shortly after that, we caught a case, domestic violence case. Again, I was probably on those pills.
Oh, man.
Drinking and...
Y'all both called the case?
Yes. Well, it was more on my husband. It's kind of a tricky situation. But I got arrested first, and they released me. It's so crazy. I got arrested in Kirby, and I'm at Kirby. Now I'm pioneering Kirby. And then they released me, and they let me know that they were going to pick me back up. I don't know what the detective was talking about. And I was like, okay. He's like, you better not fight it. Better not. They already knew me from being a teenager, running away. I lived right across the street from the police station. So this city already knew me, and the city knew my husband because he worked there. And so, but when they were supposed to pick me up, they picked my husband up instead. And he got arrested. And so then we had to do the whole, the court, try to fight it. And then the state picked it up because it's a domestic violence case. And so then the state picked it up, lacking evidence, and somehow it got dismissed. I don't know. It was God, because the whole room of people in the courtroom, like, the tension is thick. You're waiting for them to call your case, and like you just feel so like low. You're like, man, how did I end up here? And then they dismissed it, and me and my boyfriend at the time, TJ, we left, and we were like, we're not getting into more trouble. Like, you need to stop drinking that much, and like, you need to stop Xanax. Like, we were blaming each other. And so. Yeah, so it's just partying from there.
Man, that's rare, too, to get a domestic violence case dropped.
I don't know how.
No,
well, we
it
did
is
get
rare.
a lawyer. We did get a lawyer, and we spent a lot of money on that lawyer. And, like, he was a really good lawyer. And then he was helping us. And I don't know what he said. But, like, they dragged that domestic case on for so long so that they want to see if you get in trouble again. Anything happens. Because for sure you're going to do time. And so we were just staying out of trouble. We weren't even supposed to be around each other, which was hard because I ended up getting pregnant during that time. And so on my court, the day we go to court, I'm like 6 months pregnant, 7 months pregnant. It's like, really? Like, you show back up with him and now you're pregnant.
So y'all haven't been around each other, and you're like,
Out for 6 months.
Right. And so, but they didn't even really see me. I was sitting in the back. And so our lawyer went up to them, and they got it dismissed, and we left. We like ran out of there. And everybody's looking at you in court, like, as you leave, like, what happened? How come they get to leave? And we left, and we never went back to court unless it was for like child custody or whatever, but we never got in trouble again like that. And so
That's awesome.
And then I remember getting me and TJ, well, we had a Leah. I think I was like 19 years old at that time with the core, 20. And then I remember moving in with TJ. Me and him were just not getting along. I didn't like TJ at all when I was pregnant, and he was just doing his own thing, partying. I had stopped drinking. I had stopped doing drugs. I was, pregnant now, and I didn't want to harm the baby. I didn't want to hurt the baby or anything. But it was kind of like carrying this baby, not really knowing, like, what is going to happen, like, with me and, TJ. Like, what are we going to be? Like, you just don't know. You just feel so empty. And then I'm not doing drugs, and I'm so used to doing something. So it's kind of like, this sucks, He's going out, and I'm just, here. And I had a Leah when I was 21 years old. Thank God I had a Leah when I was 21 years old. I can't imagine, being 21 and probably partying, and probably getting myself into some.
because you already did all that other stuff before even 21 in the hospital, alcohol, poisoning, all this stuff.
I can't imagine. And so, and I had big plans when I was 21. I was like, I'm going to go to Austin. I'm going to go to 6th Street. I would have probably died there. And so, I had a Leah when I was 21. And I don't know how TJ convinced me to move in with him. I did not want to move in with him because all we did was fight. I was like, if I move in with you, we're going to catch another case. And so I remember just being so empty. I was breastfeeding my daughter at that time. And so I think that was like a blessing that I was breastfeeding. I had to stay sober, but I was feeling so bad. I remember getting out of the hospital having Liam, and all the medication they gave me, TJ took it all away from me because he was like, you're gonna, no. I'm like, I'm in pain. He's like, take ibuprofen. And so he would not let me take anything. He would check my drawers. He would check because he knew like I would run to that. And so we were just there, in our apartment. Little did I know God was tugging at his heart and to go to church. And then he asked me to one day out of blue, like, let's go to church. And we went to church. And I saw TJ get saved. I didn't get saved. I saw him get saved. I saw him at the altar cry. I saw TJ get filled with the Holy Spirit, and I had no idea what that was. And I know for a fact, like, TJ would not fake that. Like, I know him. Like, he's not going to just start speaking in tongues. Like, what is that? So that freaked me out a little bit. I remember leaving and, like, what'd you do? What was that? And he was like, that was God. Like, I'm tired. He was like, I'm tired of running. Like, let's go to church. I'm like, nah. Because I had already been hurt. Yeah. All I ever wanted.
Like, I went to church. I tried that.
Yeah. All I ever wanted since I can remember was to go to church. And so I just didn't want to do that. And so I think he would go a little bit without me. And then he would beg me to go. Like, let's go. And then I would go. I started coming to church, and I started, coming around. And that's when Pastor Will. I think the only reason why I'm probably saved is first, yes, God, he was calling me for sure. But it was Pastor Will and Norma really, they won me. They loved me. They really tried to reach out to me, and they were family too, but it was just different. What I felt with them was so different. The only time I ever felt that true, genuine love was my abuelita. She would tell me about God, and she loved me. Like, she would, even in all my sin, she would minister to me, and I could be super, super high. And if I would be around her, she would pray with me. She would hold my hand, and she would talk to me about God. She was a pastor's wife from California. So my great-grandfather passed away. She was a widow her whole life. So for the rest of her life. And she would play piano and talk to me about God. And she played a big, big part of my life. So what I felt from her, that genuine love, that Christianity, that true Christianity, I felt that off of William and Norma. And so I think,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And so I think, like, them just, trying to reach me. It's so important, like, to reach people and talk to them and win them in fellowship. I think that's what won me. And I eventually got saved at a revival with Pastor Miguel Martinez. I got saved. And
Nice.
Yeah.
In your early 20s, is this where the depression was, like, really
I was super
strong?
Yeah, I was right when TJ told me, let's go to church. I guess he saw how empty I was, and I didn't really realize it then. I was super depressed because I was.
What do you think the root of that was?
I think that I had, my whole life, I had filled all the hurt with drugs and alcohol and hate. And this time I was sober. I'm breastfeeding Aaliyah. So I felt stuck. I couldn't smoke. I couldn't do this. So I was like just me and my thoughts. And like at the end of the day, like, you don't have any of that. So now what? Like, what are you going to fill yourself with? And I had nothing. I didn't know. I didn't think, like, it's God. I didn't know. I was like, no, I ain't doing that. That scared me. And so I was just super empty.
At this time, you weren't doing drugs or anything. How was you dealing with that?
I was fiending for sure. I remember just wanting, like, I was like, TJ, just give me a cigarette, dude. Like, give me something. Like, when really I didn't really realize that I needed God.
Yeah.
But I was like, something I would tell him I need something. I'm going crazy here in this apartment. And that's when we went to church, and thank God he told me, let's go to church. As much as I fought it at the beginning, but then, I got saved and God started to help me. I wasn't like converted right away. Some people, you see those new converts are so excited. I wasn't that. I was super like on guard. I didn't trust anybody. I didn't trust Pastor Will at first. I put them through so much. But thank God he would counsel me, would talk to me. He's actually probably the first person other than TJ that I let know about what happened when I was a child. And he helped me a lot with his testimony, counseling and stuff. And then he ended up talking to me about marriage and was super terrified to marry TJ because I was like, man, we're gonna just end up like separated or getting in trouble. And then we got married, and I noticed a huge difference when we got married. And yeah, so then life just started happening. And
When did you know it was real? So I know you see this. Said you had your
Real.
guard up,
Mhm.
you know, rightfully so, and you know, I believe you even coming to church and all that. You know, in my eyes, it is a miracle.
Mm.
It's a miracle, especially with you know, your earlier experience with going to church. At what point can you pinpoint like a time where you were like, you know what, this is real. Like, this is a real experience. Experience, like you said, that real love. And can you pinpoint like when you kind of let your guard down, when you were like, okay, you know, God, here I am?
I think when I started to forgive people, I think that's when it started to get really real for me. Because when I got saved, it was like, oh, I'm fine. Why do I need to, like, you know, William, I remember, was like, you need to serve God. You need to ask God for forgiveness. And in my head, I was like, what did I do? Like, forgiveness? I just came to church. But I didn't understand. And I was like, they need forgiveness. I was all like, all over the place. But I started learning about the Bible. I started hearing preaching. I just started learning more about the Bible through preaching because I didn't read my word. So I started learning through what he was saying. And then I think it became really real. I got a word one time at a revival, and it was dead on. Like, you've been violated growing up. It was like if someone told him. I was a little bit confused. I was a little upset that I got a word. And I remember my sister-in-law, Norma, telling me, maybe God's trying to deal with you in this area because you need to deal with it. That became real for me. Like, whoa, like that was God speaking to me. And then I realized I can't forgive them. I can't. But like through Jesus, I can. So then I started to learn like the only forgiveness you can find is through God. So then that's when it became real, is when I was able to forgive people. Once I was able to forgive people, realize God forgave me, I have to forgive others. Then like I started getting healing because I just didn't get saved and was all like in it. Like I didn't want to just, I want to do this, I want to do that. I didn't want to do anything. I just was learning. I was like, I don't know, I had my guard up. And I got real when I started to heal. And through counseling and talking about certain things, I was able to become real for me. And then after that, I was able to let go of certain things and then start feeling on fire for God because I was getting closure with certain things.
That's good.
Yeah.
And here you said that you finally got to face your abuser face to face. Is that your uncle or is that is that guy?
Yeah, it was my uncle. I remember being saved, and I think maybe it was like right when I got saved. He had got in trouble because he was fostering kids, and I guess he was doing things to them, and they told, and he was living in a small town, and it made news. Like it was like, yeah, and so.
And you said he was a youth pastor, right?
So they had to do an investigation and all that in their church, and it turned out there was more victims or whatever.
Oh man.
Yeah, and so, I think I got a phone call one day from my dad, and I'm like living life, I'm okay, and then my dad's like, hey, you know, your uncle is in the hospital, he had a heart attack, and this and that. He let me know that he got in trouble with doing that. He's like, and he brought up you and your sister, and he confessed. It was years, and I was like, well, yeah. And so my dad was super crushed. He had found out what had happened, and I was like, yeah. And so that I had to deal with that in the church. It's like, no, now it's now family knows, and now this and that. So I had to find healing with God, and I remember he was like, he had to register as like a pedophile.
Yeah,
and
sex offender.
you can't be around kids, you can't be around school or whatever.
Yeah.
So he was like kicked off the map, like nothing, nobody. Like, talk about humbled. And I remember thinking about it a lot because now it's fresh. And I remember he had got cancer during this time, and he got really, really sick. Lost his marriage. She divorced him. Lost everything, and I felt like I needed to forgive him, and not just forgive him, but like go face him and like let him know like the real God, like the God I learned about, you know, not what you portrayed, but what I learned about, and let him know that I forgived him, and just try to be a witness to him now, the true witness, not twist it or manipulate it. And I remember he was dying, and through family, they let me know that he was dying. And I remember telling my husband, like, I need to go over there. And my husband was real defensive for me. He was like, no, you don't need to do that. And I'm not saying people need to go face that, whatever they're dealing with, their abuse, you like use wisdom. But for me, I needed to do this. And so I think it was like 11 o'clock at night. I got in my car and I drove. He was like in hospice at this point. And I drove over there, and there was family in the room. And I had asked them if they could get out. I think everybody was a little shocked because they already knew, you know, the whole situation with me. And so they were kind of like, what are you going to do here? I was like, I'm not going to hurt him. Calm down. And I just asked if I could have a moment with him. He was like already kind of like under, but he could still hear us. And so I had asked if the doctor, like, can I speak to him? Oh, he could hear you. I was like, okay. And so I said his name, and I was like, it's Desiree, your niece. And he started to like cry.
Oh, wow.
Shake. And I remember putting my hand on his hand, and I'm like, I'm not here to yell at you. I'm not even mad at you. But I just wanted to tell you that I forgive you for everything that you've done, and that I really do love you, because, you know, whatever he did, whatever, you know, I've had people not agree with me on this. I've had people think I was silly, but this is what I needed to do. And I just told him I really felt like he was dying with a lot of condemnation. I felt like he was dying with no hope. And that killed me, because I'm a Christian, and I didn't want him to go to hell. I wanted him to make heaven his home. So I just told him if he didn't have to die with, you know, guilt, like God can forgive him if he truly means it. And so I prayed with him. I asked him to pray with me. If he couldn't repeat it, if he just repeated it in his head. And I prayed the sinner's prayer with him. And then I know he meant it, because he was like crying a lot. And then I kissed him on his forehead, and I left. And he died at 7 o'clock the next morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Man.
So I just needed to do that for me.
Did you feel any like chains or bonds broken?
Yeah,
right
I felt
there?
like that, literally that. And I remember crying so much on the way home. Like, I don't know why I was crying so much. I got so emotional, and I called my pastor, and I was like, I don't know why I'm crying. Like, I promise I forgave him. Like I did, but I'm just so hurt. Like, he's like, I remember he said, like, well, Miss Desiree, it's that chapter's ending in your life, and you don't have to deal with any of that no more. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't think of it like that. So, yeah, he passed away, and I went to his funeral. It was one of the saddest funerals, because nobody wants to go. You know, everybody's like, no, I'm not going to his funeral. So, but I went. I went, and it's so crazy, because when I left, my other abuser showed up there, because he knew him, and we locked eyes, and he looked like he saw like a deer in headlights. And I had Aaliyah with me. I'm a mom now. So like, you can't scare me. And so he was just like, oh, you know, Desiree, Ray. And he was super shocked. And I saw him immediately feel so much guilt for everything he's done to me. And I felt real bad for him. And we walked away, and I haven't really seen him since.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was you able to let all that resentment go towards him?
Yeah, like I saw him like years later, and we didn't really talk, but yeah, I was able to forgive him. He and I struggled with more, because he scared me. He really scared me a lot. He made me feel so low. Like, the rejection I felt was a lot because of him, how he made me feel, the things he said. And yeah, when I saw him that day and he was crying and he felt so bad, I knew, like, man, you had to live with that. Like, you had to answer to God for that. That's you. Like, I'm gonna do okay. Like, I'm healing and I forgive you, but you have to live with that. And if you don't find God, you're gonna be stuck with that, you know, and that's horrible. So yeah, I've forgiven him and let it go. There's some closure. I don't think I'll ever probably get closure with him. Maybe not talk to him. Maybe never really get to face it. And I'm okay with that. I used to not be okay with that. I used to want to face him. And now I found that closure with God.
Amen.
Yeah, so I'm okay with that. But yeah, I was able to forgive my uncle.
Man, when those chains broke, how'd you feel?
I felt super different. Like, I felt so much better. And I felt like I prayed with him. And then the next day when he passed away, I was like, oh my gosh, like, it felt good because I just felt like I kept thinking of that scripture, like, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Like, they don't know what they're doing.
Forgive them, Father, for they don't know what
Yeah,
they're doing.
I kept thinking of that. Like, just forgive him. If Jesus can forgive people, like, I can forgive people too. So I forgave him, and I'm really believing he made heaven his home. I would want that, you know? And yeah, so just after that, just kept, serving God, talking to Pastor Louise, getting counseling with certain things I was going through at the time, and then just getting discipled. And, eventually we got launched out to Kirby in 2017. And it's so crazy how, being there in our church, we have so many people that God is bringing us women that, like, have gone through what I've gone through. And sometimes these women, like, don't even know my testimony, but I can relate to them. I can empathize with them. And they'll know my testimony once they see this. But sometimes they just want people to love them. And, like, they're not even coming to our church because, we know so much about the Bible, or they're truly coming because they want to know if we love them. And I think that's so important because that's all I ever wanted, when I was little was, to know God and to be loved. And then certain stuff happened in life. And, I didn't want to throw a pity party my whole life. Thank God I found God. I probably would have threw a pity party my whole life if I didn't have God. But it's just such a privilege to, like, be out and my husband pastoring. My husband was preaching the other day, like, I think it was Sunday. I listened to his preaching when I'm in the back office doing finances. And he was talking about closure. And he was like, sometimes, he was telling the church, sometimes we're not going to get closure, guys. Like, and we have to be okay with that, whether one party wants it or the other party doesn't want it. He was talking about offenses or something like that. And I was like, that's so true. I was like thinking about that. Like, I didn't get closure in certain things, but I found closure through God because he's enough. He's more than enough. And so a lot of the loose ends I felt in life, or the holes or the emptiness I felt with questions, unanswered questions, God was able to fill that with his peace. So I don't have to know everything or why certain things or get the response I want. I'm okay with God being enough for me. That's it. So
That's good.
I know you talk about your sister, you and her being real close, and your middle sister, the one right above you. How did things fare out for her? So I'm hearing your story, and I mean, praise God. I mean, it's miracles and overcoming and forgiveness and healing, and what happened to her with your uncle and everything being revealed, and in her adult life. What transpired with that?
She found closure. She's saved, thank God. Okay. She's serving God, and she was able to release a lot of.
With our fellowship?
No, she's in her own church. One day maybe she'll be in our fellowship, but I'm so glad she's even saved. And so she found closure. She's forgiven. She didn't get the chance to really. She did face him, I think, and forgiven him, but she's doing good, I think, because God's involved. So me and her, we backed up each other a lot. Like, whatever I went through in my walk with God and it had to do with him, I would immediately call her. She was like the first person I called because she understood me. Like, no one really understood, but she understood me. And so she was like, she found closure, thank God. And she has peace with it, knowing that she did forgive him. And to this day, if she talks about him, she's able to, not have any anger, resentment. I don't see that off of her. I see like she truly forgiven
Praise
him.
God.
Yeah, thank God.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So would you have any advice to anybody, any girl or woman that are watching this to kind of give them some encouragement, like maybe they're going through something similar, something that you can tell them to be like, hey, there is hope, and this is how you get it. Can you tell anybody something like that?
And one part that I'm real interested in as well with that is you were saying letting go and forgiving and all that stuff and giving it to God. Is there anything specific, or how does one go about that? I'm thinking of, these are things we hear, right? You need to forgive, you need to let go, you need to work through these things. Is there anything specific? Is it just crying out to God? Is it prayer? Is it saying, God, I forgive? I heard you said, God, I forgive. Or how does one even go about that?
Talking about it sometimes, because I think a lot of people don't want to talk about it, which is so understandable. I didn't want to talk about it for the longest time. And even like this day, like to get myself here to talk about it on camera is so hard. But I think talking about it, because people could say, oh, forgive. But sometimes they use that forget like too much. I'm like, yes, we know, we understand that. We will forget about it. But sometimes it's just the healing process. We'll forgive, or people want to forgive, but sometimes they don't know how. But sometimes they need to talk about it. And I think there are sometimes I didn't want to talk about it, but I was able to talk about it. I had two pastors, or my pastor now, Luis, and Pastor William, that were available for me to talk to. And if I had any questions, or if I cried, or Pastor Luis would just listen to me cry and yell, and he would just let it out. And then he would apologize, for anything that happened to me. And same thing with Pastor Will. So I think, yes, finding forgiveness through Jesus, but also it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to, with someone you trust, headship, your pastor. It's okay to be vulnerable and cry. Sometimes you don't want to cry or talk about certain things, and sometimes you don't have to talk about certain things you don't want to. There's a lot of stuff that I probably won't share just because it's kind of, personal or graphic, but I think it's okay to talk about it. So, yeah. And advice I would give is, if you did struggle with, I'm not no abuse expert, but I know there's different types of abuse. There's physical, there's sexual, there's verbal. And if you did struggle with that as a child or as an adult, sometimes you have to get it out of your head like you're the problem. I think for the longest time I thought I was a problem. Why didn't they like me as a kid? And I think you can find closure, like my husband was preaching, through Jesus. He's enough. It's only through God that you can find true forgiveness. Only through Jesus. We can try to forgive on our own, but you can't really do that unless God is at the center of your forgiveness. And like my husband said, every year that I've been serving God, it gets better and better and better. And my worst day, if I can say, if I go through as a Christian, is way better than, than what I thought was my best day in my sin. I wouldn't trade it for nothing. I can't, because I know who I am, and I have a true fear to go back to my sin. I won't make it, and it's a privilege to lead my kids now in the right direction. I know I made a few mistakes, with the older two not being a good example, but I'm able to make it up. Both of them are in church now. They're saved, thank God. And I'm able to be an example to them, able to hold on to my dignity as a woman, respect, and be an example to them and those around me. So just the advice I could give people is just to find closure with Jesus involved. And it's okay to not have closure in certain things, because God will fill that emptiness with him. So, yeah.
Powerful. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
You're welcome.
Man, I can't wait to see what kind of stirring it's going to do. kind of fruit it's going to bring. So,
So, going from broken at 8, hitting that rock bottom, broken, what an early age to be broken to, where she is now with her and her husband pastoring there in Kirby, nothing, miracles to be broken at such a young age and go through all that she's gone through to, where she's at now. So, I mean, man, yeah, I mean, there you go. Y'all have it. And if y'all could just hit replay and watch it again, if y'all need to hear it again, I mean, just miracle after miracle, folks. Remember, share the link with people. Let them know. If this testimony doesn't line up, we have a playlist. So for all those hopeless people out there, there's hope. Maybe you're not the light, but He is the light, and it's through these testimonies and through these stories that we'll be able to reach people. But I just thank you so much for coming and opening up and sharing with us and sharing with the world, what you've gone through and what Jesus has done through you.
Thank you for having me.
that's our episode. We'll check y'all on the next one.
So I remember that. I mean, I remember when I was backslidden, and when our cousin got killed, we were there. The whole family was getting together, and we're there. And I remember talking to him, and he asked, like, "Hey, what are you doing for God?" And I was backslidden, and I remember that hit me hard.
Really?
Yeah, because he had asked me a second time, like, "Hey, what are you doing? Are you preaching? Are you still calling to preach?" And I was backslidden. I didn't want nothing to do with God. And I remember him asking that. But for me, it wasn't like that. It was, how to play the part. And granted, I wasn't crazy. You know what I mean? I wasn't doing drugs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you knew when to play, when to put on the act. At church, you can
okay.
act like a good kid. And then out in the world, you do what you want to do.
Okay.
That's cool,
Church
yeah.
mode on.
Yeah, exactly. You can put your finest on the Sunday. You dress up nice and you act like everything's okay. But
Yes, sir. No, sir.
you go out to school and you do your thing at school.
Is there anything that like sticks out to you that, okay, when you guys got married, when you did it right, is there anything that sticks out that you were like, this is what God wanted it to be? Like, is there anything
Anything that stuck out? No, it was just more the satisfaction of knowing that what we did was right in God's eyes.
Okay.
And knowing that there was a blessing on it. So
That's
as far as
awesome.
anything stuck out right away, no. But it was more the satisfaction knowing that, okay, God, I'm doing right in your eyes. Like, because I've already messed up before.
Right.
And so it's like, no, I'm going to do it right.